Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Well, Obama is a lame duck now, and he's going across Europe squawking as he craps out more regulations here in the United States. And we're going to take a look at these two things. But remember, it was just 2 days ago that Obama was in Greece, and there he was warning against what he called a crude sort of nationalism that he said was taking root in the United States. In Athens, President Obama warned to guard against a rise in a crude sort of nationalism or ethnic identity or tribalism. This is from the guy who has pushed tribalism over individualism as a political tactic. This is their tactic. So certainly he understands that. Understand when they talk about diversity, you really need to break that down. I think that it's really kind of a collection, the way the Democrats use it, of division and diversion. That's what diversity is. That's what they mean when they say diversity. They don't want to divide us into competing groups because it makes it easier for them to win elections. It makes it easier for them to govern us. And they even pushed back against Oprah Winfrey. Before the election, if you remember, of course, she's gotten in trouble since then by saying, hey, let's give Trump a bit of a chance. And boy, she got hammered on social media. But before that, she got hammered for saying, I don't like the term diversity. It sounds a little bit much like division. Let's talk about inclusiveness. That would be a way to approach it, right? Let's talk about individualism. Let's talk about treating people as if they were individuals instead of members of a group. And that really is the source of this angst that we see with the millennials across the country. But it goes on to say, the things that separate us ultimately lead us into conflict. Yes, he knows that. That's precisely why he did it. He said in the United States, we know what happens when we start dividing ourselves along the lines of race or religion or ethnicity. Yeah, we know exactly what happens. Democrats get elected. That's why they keep doing it. They divide us along the lines of ethnicity, religion, and other aspects into groups so they can get elected. Now, today, he's issuing even more warnings. And that's another headline from another article by the Washington Post. After the Trump win, Obama warns against taking democracy for granted. Now he's gone to Germany. And I think it's kind of interesting that he didn't start talking about taking democracy for granted in Greece. Why is that? We've seen the European Union depose not only a democratically elected prime minister in Italy and replace him with the Goldman Sachs bankers, but they did the same thing in Greece as well. And remember, it was Nigel Farage, that famous speech where he went into the EU and he talked to Herman von Rompuy and he said, who are you? You have the demeanor of a third-rate bank clerk. You have deposed the democratically elected leader in the country that invented democracy, Greece. So Obama waits a couple of days before he starts talking about the legacy of democracy. He didn't do that in Athens. I guess the hypocrisy would have been a bit too much for the people there. But now that he's in Germany and standing with Merkel, he talks about democracy. And the Washington Post reports that he has wrapped up his final visit, his goodbye tour to Europe. Yes, he's going to have to start paying for his own vacations pretty soon, as well as his own golfing trips. He wrapped it up today, Thursday, and he warned Western democracies again not to take for granted our system of government and our way of life. No, we don't take that for granted, Obama. That's why we did not elect your successor who is going to continue your policies of destroying our democracy, of destroying our society that we've built in the West. We understand that this was a weaponized attack. That's what globalism is. He says, and he continues to talk about transatlantic cooperation. And it's interesting in this article that the Washington Post will mention several times that the two leaders never mentioned Donald Trump by name, but they said this, critical of the future in America. And they said this again, but they didn't mention Trump by name. They mentioned that over and over again, just so you know that they're talking about Donald Trump as if you couldn't figure it out. And that's the Washington Post still leading the opposition. They go on to say the two leaders never mentioned him by name, but then they go on to defend the trifecta of globalism. They talk about refugees and how we have to keep that going. They talk about sharing a joint responsibility to protect and preserve our way of life while they try to destroy it by these tactics. They argue strongly in favor of pursuing a free trade deal. They herald the Paris Agreement to cut global emissions. So there's the three aspects of it. The refugees, the open borders, that's one part of it. The second part, of course, is the trade agreements. The third part is the climate treaty. Those are the three things that they can't stand about Donald Trump. And that is the essence of nationalism versus globalism. Those are the three legs of the instrument, if you will, that it's been designed to take down the West, to destroy our culture, our society, our way of life, our rule of law, even to erase our national borders, as they then establish on the ruins that they create a new economic order that they control. They pick the winners, they pick the losers, they control all of this with their globalist treaties that they already wrote with the multinational corporations. And they can also fund a global governance with a worldwide crisis that they invent and a worldwide tax and redistribution of wealth. Now, at the same time, as I pointed out, the lame duck Obama is squawking across Europe. He is basically crapping out regulations here, or as General Patton said in the movie where George C. Scott did, faster than shit out of a goose. We've got Obama setting a new record for regulations, 527 pages in just a single day, just one day. And this Washington Examiner piece points out that President Obama has just set a new record for rules and regulations, his administration putting out 527 pages in a single day as he races to put his fingerprint on virtually every corner of American life and business. And that's the issue, folks. That is the essence of this pervasive tyranny that is being sold to us by the elite of both parties. And let's hope that Donald Trump doesn't buy into this, that Donald Trump doesn't think that every problem that we have needs to be solved in Washington. As I pointed out yesterday, I'm very concerned about the $1 trillion infrastructure process that Donald Trump is doing. That's not his concern. He really doesn't need to worry about building our roads and bridges. We don't need to have those decisions made centrally in Washington. We get bridges to nowhere when we do that sort of thing. We get massive boondoggles. We get crony capitalism. We get multinational corporations taking over our infrastructure and owning it and then turning us into serfs who have to rent our roads from them, who have to rent our bridges from them, who have to rent everything else from them because they will own everything. We don't need that. What we need from a Donald Trump presidency is the massive tax cut that he has proposed, bigger than Reagan did, which was bigger than what JFK did. We saw the positive effects of both of those things. And then he needs to get out of the way and let us at the state and local level, with the money that Washington did not take from us, use that money to build the infrastructure that we want in our cities and in our states. Do that locally. The more locally we can keep that, then the better we will be if they pull that into Washington. That will enhance the corruption, because no matter how many election reform laws you put in, as long as you have that money and power concentrated in Washington, you will draw in the corruption, because people will be naturally drawn to it, and the crooks will be drawn to that money and that power in Washington. So it's not his job to build our infrastructure, and we don't want it being owned by foreign multinational corporations. But going back to the regulations that Obama is sticking us with, the Competitive Enterprise Institute says that the administration has just shattered the old record for pages of regulations, 81,000 total pages that they have produced now in 2016, and they still have 26 working days left. They said it's astonishing that they have set a new record, and we're not even close to Thanksgiving. We're still a couple of weeks from Thanksgiving. They said at a pace of well over 1,000 new pages each week of federal regulations. Think about that. The minutia. I mean, we have the federal government telling us we can no longer decide that we're going to have male and female restrooms, for example. That's one example of how they get into the minutia of our own personal lives. I guess I'm pointing out that this is like crap through a goose. They're going to tell us where we can actually go to the bathroom as well. That's the kind of level of control they demand to have over our lives. And they point out from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, they say this is astonishing. It should be of great concern. It should be intolerable to policymakers. You know what? It should be intolerable to us. And they say, as Obama has promised to regulate by executive authority, we need to tell him that we don't need a phone and a pen. We need a meat axe. That's what Donald Trump needs, a meat axe. Great quote from them.
Alex Jones here with a very important news update to anybody out there that wants to be prepared. But it goes beyond being prepared. Our bodies absolutely must have the good halogen iodine or we will die. and you look at all of the thyroid problems and all the people that don't have energy and that have all sorts of hormone problems. And from my research, and a lot of just mainline research, it leads back to iodine over and over and over again. It's as important as vitamin C. If you don't get iodine, you die. But most people are just deficient, so they're low energy, they're sick. You got to have iodine in your body so that your body can produce the hormones you need. It is the base to so many things. And since I got into iodine 4 years ago, we've helped change the entire paradigm by developing and bringing to the public deep earth crystals from 7,000 to 12,000 feet of the purest iodine available. Other iodine comes from the ocean or from other byproducts of chemical facilities and is tainted. It's bound. It's not absorbable. I tried it. And I had incredible effects even with dirty iodine because the body needs it. When you don't have iodine, it absorbs the chlorine, the fluoride, and all these other bad halogens. It's such a game changer if you'll just research iodine for yourself. It's a fact that the federal government in the Midwest back in the 20s mandated a grungier form of iodine to the salt because people had low IQs, they had huge goiters, major problems directly connected to it. There are some studies that show a 15-point increase. Others show even higher. But it really is crazy to realize that this is something that is so deficient in our food chain, so deficient in our played out fields where different crops are being grown, but the federal government isn't educating people and telling them about it. That's why for a limited time, I want to encourage everyone to go to InfoWarsLife.com and get 20% off on the best nascent iodine out there from our research, truly pure Survival Shield X2. Again, that's Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Thank you for joining us in this brief news update. Do yourself and your family a favor and check out the importance of iodine for yourself. I think you're going to be blown away. And whatever you do, support the broadcast and get a bottle of Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Also consult your physician because if you've been deficient in it or have other issues, it can have some dramatic effects. As for me and most folks I talk to, it's been a game changer in the positive column, but still consult your physician because iodine is no joke. It's a key building block of the body. And if you haven't had it for a long time and suddenly have it, some folks say they've experienced things like a detoxing effect and things like that. You've got to have vitamin C. You've got to have iodine to live. You got to have water to live. Iodine is key. You must have it, but consult your physician first before you get powerful Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2 at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll free. We can answer your questions, 888-253-3139.